We're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are here to talk about Fear Street by R.L. Stine today. Not the books, the TV show, the 3-part Netflix series that came out a little while ago. Have you guys read the Fear Street books? I have not.
I read one of he came out with like revamped ones, right?
Yeah.
Like a reboot. And I read one of those and it was fun.
Yeah, I've never read. I was not allowed reading Goosebumps, obviously, very conservative upbringing. So Goosebumps were like right off the table. I do remember sneaking them occasionally in my library when I was like allowed loose and by myself in the library. But I never got into the Fear Street one, so I wasn't really sure what to expect.
Yeah, I was Goosebumps age when those were all in their heyday. So I read a lot of Goosebumps.
Because Goosebumps was for like middle graders, right? And then Fear Street was for teens, I'm guessing.
So, yeah, I read like one Goosebumps book. It was not in my interest at all.
I read a ton of Goosebumps books. Like I had like a big collection and like got them from the library all the time. Yeah. But I never read like the Fear Street books. Like I think I picked it up once and was like, this isn't Goosebumps, and put it down.
Yeah, I can't remember my childhood library very well, but I have a perfect memory of the Goosebumps aisle.
I really remember. Yeah, same. I have obviously not in my library because it wasn't allowed, but I do remember there was like a full rack of Goosebumps at my library because there's so many of them. They're like that, like really cool, pulpy, little tiny paperback, and then there would just be hundreds of them colors. Yeah, it's so funny because like I met R.L. Stine at a conference a few years back, and now that I think about that, I'm really annoyed because at the time I hadn't seen the Goosebumps movies, I hadn't read any of his books, so I was like, I know he's iconic, but like I haven't consumed anything that he's written, so there was no driving force for me to go up and be like, hi, let's shake hands and talk or whatever. And now I'm like, you idiot. He was right there in front of you.
He was there when we were at Y'allfest, right?
Yeah.
He was one of the keynote speakers.
I must have. Okay, there. Yeah, he was there. And then there was another time that he was at a conference as well. So twice, 2 times. Dang it, Aaron. Now I would go up and talk to him because he seemed really nice as well. He wasn't
my main impression of him at Y'allfest was that he was like surprisingly really funny.
Yes.
And like finding out, I think he talked about in his keynote there that like he started out doing like comic strips and comedy type stuff. And his agent was basically like, what if someone wrote like teen horror? And he wrote Fear Street. And they were like, oh, you're actually really good at this.
Surprising. So did he write Fear Street before Goosebumps?
I think so.
Oh, interesting.
I know Goosebumps was not his first horror thing, if I remember right.
I watched his master class. I think he had a master class.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. Because in his master class he talks about ending every chapter on a cliffhanger, which is like a very classic pulpy short chapter book thing. I loved that as a kid. Was it Y'allfest where he talked about going in like a limo or the car or whatever, and they were going around the traffic jam and he couldn't figure out why there were that many cars, and he discovered it was because they were all there to go to his signing? Were you guys okay? Another conference I went to, but he was talking about how he got stuck in traffic, but it was the traffic all heading to his own book signing. Yeah. And that was the first time, I think somebody had asked him, what was the first time you realized that you were like famous? And that was what he did when I got stuck in the traffic jam for my own book signing. That's pretty iconic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the actual show. Let's talk about part 1. I figure for those of you watching, we're going to do all 3 parts, but we're going to do them kind of one by one. And then at the end, we'll wrap up and talk about which one we liked the best, which one we didn't like as much, and give it maybe an all over rating. So let's talk about number 1.
Sorry, I do have an answer about when his books came out.
Oh, yes.
The first Fear Street book came out in 1989, and the first Goosebumps came out in 1992. So, yeah, Fear Street was his first book.
Interesting. Because the Goosebumps ones were the ones he really got famous for. So I just kind of had assumed that he did Goosebumps and then branched into Fear Street for some reason. So that's interesting. Very cool. I always like it to hear when an author like does okay with first book series and then like really breaks out with second book story series. Hope. So let's talk about part 1, which is the one that's called 1994. They don't have like super unique names that I remember, so I have Wikipedia pulled up. In case anyone needs a refresh, I did watch 1994 a little while ago. Basically, this is the first one. It's very slasher, and basically it's about the girl that starts off in a bookstore, and I was very sad because she's a bookstore employee, and immediately I was like, I identify with you, and then she gets straight up ganked immediately. Sad. And then we're introduced to this shady side town, and apparently mass murders are frequent enough that people like make jokes about it, and they're talking about Sarah Fear, and she's cursed the town, and this is the reason mass murders happen all the time. So let's go through and give it a rating. What did you guys think? 1 out of 5. Megan's on my top right here.
3.5. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was not my favorite of the 3. I understand why it existed the way it did, and I respect that. It just wasn't, I didn't think it was as fun as the other ones. But I still really enjoyed it. Thought it was a good slasher, you know? Met all my viewer expectations in that regard.
Slasherness. Yeah. And Megan. Megan. Emma, what about you?
I would also give it 3.5. It's definitely my least favorite of the 3 movies. And a lot of watching this was me like realizing all the reasons I'm like not a fan of slashers. So like it just was not going to be something I really loved. But yeah, like I think it's like solidly pretty well made. It's a good slasher. And it set up things to come. I know like when I got to the end of it, like the final scene of it, I was like, okay, I'm interested to watch the rest of them. So it at least interested me enough to keep me going. I didn't quit, but I didn't love it. So.
Okay. And Des?
I like the first one. I think I'm going to hop on this 3.5 train. It's so hard to gauge in like a scale of 5 and a scale of 10. I would probably give it a 6 or a 7. I liked it. I don't typically like scary things, but fun fact, I like slasher movies. But like I can do scary if it's not ghost scary.
Yeah, the
ghost
tension
scary,
is different.
It is. It's so much different. It did end up like freaking me out. Like I watched them at night, which was a bad decision. So I liked it, but it was definitely my least favorite of the 3.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hop on the same train as the rest of you guys and say, actually, I'm gonna give it 3. I think you guys get 3.5 or whatever, but it was definitely my least favorite of the 3 as well. Again, like Megan said, I understood like why it was set up the way it was. I also felt like I would have liked to be eased into the excessive gore a little bit more than we were. Like I used to work at a bakery, and the scene with the bread machine, I was like, "Excuse you, what just happened?" Like, no.
I have a lot of feelings about that.
Yeah,
the entire grocery store scene was like, oh my god.
Yeah, yeah, it was very. I think I Snapchatted you guys at one point and was like, I'm just like straight up yelling at the scene, like, why is that necessary?
Here's the thing. I don't think that machine would cut through bone. I just don't think it would.
No.
And so I didn't believe it. And I was like, what?
See, I didn't realize it was a bread machine. I don't know my grocery store machinery. So I would have thought it was like a meat cutter or something.
But even a meat cutter can't go through bone like that. Like you'll destroy.
I know someone who lost their arm to a meat cutter. Actually.
I was going to say, I did work in grocery stores for about 7 years, so I can tell you the meat slicer probably would. Yeah.
I know someone who is missing an arm because
from the top. Yeah, I just don't think it would slice into you.
But you're also thinking about the fact that it's like a skull. It's not a normal bone
it's not
either. Like it would definitely not go through.
Definitely not a bread slicer. Which I didn't realize that's what it was.
Well, also the fact that, yeah, I mean, like, I can't go too much into detail without going into nasty detail, but like, when we worked on the bread slicer, there was a dude who had lost his finger, but it's because the reason people lose their fingers is because you really have to push you have to push it through. And our dumbass bosses didn't have one of the slider things. You know, you're supposed to have a safety handle. So you shove the loaves through, but we didn't have one. So we had to shove it through with our hands. And someone lost a finger because you had to do that. And the thing was, it was hard to shove through even a loaf of bread, right? So, no.
Everyone in the comments is surprised. It was a bread machine. I'm glad we have you here, Erin.
Yeah. Because I knew it wasn't a meat grinder because it had the slices in it. So I was like, oh, it must be like some sort of meat slicer. And so I was like furiously Googling. I was like, could a meat slicer go through a bone?
Meat slicer might, but not a bread slicer. And I don't know if a meat slicer would like be okay afterwards. I don't think it would properly get through somebody.
Really dull blade, probably.
Not their skull, anyways. This is a awesome conversation. Not what I planned.
And here's the other issue I took with that whole scene. I didn't feel like it needed to be in that setting.
No.
Like there were so many settings for that movie. It felt like we were just constantly moving to different spots around town. And especially since we never came back to that one, I felt like the only reason they put us there was so that they could have a bread slicer for that scene. And it was like, it's not even a unique slasher form. Like anyone who's seen a slasher or any sort of like supernatural horror has seen body go through meat grinder. Like it just didn't feel like it was necessary or unique. Or
like the grocery store version of a wood chipper. And you're like, super original.
And we see the character who deals the pills. We see her with the pills on her regularly. So there was no reason that she couldn't have just had them on her in some other setting.
That's very true.
I feel like the fact that she drowns her in a lobster tank at a later date.
I'd also just feel like, though, if you're on a time crunch, why don't you start with the lobster tank? Why do you start with the pills that will take hours?
Oh, I was like, why didn't they do this at the school? They were like in a chemistry room. Like they could have like blocked the like drain and done it like real quick right there before changing locations.
Or did they have a defibrillator? I can't remember.
All schools always have a defibrillator.
Yeah, they always do.
But did they have one on them?
I think they would have been fine without it though.
Because they didn't have one for the final scene.
Oh, okay.
But my other question was just, she had like 7 to 10 pills and took them all at once with no water.
No,
yeah.
Like my husband didn't watch the whole movie with me, but he was there for like part of that scene. He was like, "Why do they always take pills without water?" And
I would be taking them one at a time. Most sips of water.
I've just gagged on them all.
That reminds me of when I went to the hospital for my foot. The guy gave me 4 pills and he was looking at me and I'm like, do you expect me to just them all back and swallow them?
I will chew these in front of you.
I will chew and I will gag in front of you. But it was so awkward because he's just standing there waiting for me, and I'm like, 1 drink, 2 drink, 3, and then just like it took a while, and I was like, this is as fast as I can go, dude. Sorry.
And I do, obviously, it's a slasher, it's horror, so there's a level of camp that you just accept. Of course, the bread slicer sliced her up. Of course, she could dry swallow 10 gigantic pills.
Like, why did there have to be like? I understood like the pseudoscience, like what he was saying that each pile did, but I'm like, she has to take 3 piles of pills and then get stabbed a bunch of EpiPens. Like, this is not like there's such an easier way to do it. Like they needed to do. Like,
I was like, these kids need to read Victoria Schwab's books. Like.
Yeah.
Learn the fine art of murdering your friends and
how to kill yourself and bring yourself back.
To life.
Right.
Yeah.
Amateurs.
Yeah. We had a comment from Missy Kate, except for Maya Hawk, who died in the beginning. I didn't like any of the characters really. And honestly, kind of same.
Yeah.
I didn't. That was my only like very big picture. Like I have a hard time suspending whatever for this. Was just there's so much that goes on in the second and third movies that it feels like the first movie was maybe where we should have learned more about the characters. Like, we should have cared about the romance at the heart of it enough that like we didn't care that everyone else was dying for her. And then I also felt like we should have learned a lot more about the cop.
That's really true.
At least seen his personality a little bit. I feel like to see what we saw in to see what we saw in the second movie, and then to be like, oh well, you know, people change.
Grew into this boring adult.
Yeah, that's true. Because I definitely, when we get to the like second and third one, I felt like it was like a very like dramatic, like his whole personality has changed very quickly.
I know we're like not talking about the third one yet, but I was literally cackling when she came like back and she said good is evil. I was screaming laughing. I was like, this is so dumb, but I love it.
Yes.
Like, I was like, wow.
Amazing. They really knocked that one out of the park.
So the main character is Dina, right?
Yes.
It's funny.
Dina and Sam.
Yeah, because it's funny what you guys were saying. Because I did not like the relationship between Dina and Sam at first because it felt almost not abusive, but like not healthy.
It was definitely toxic.
I was okay with it not being like a good relationship. I just wanted a little, like a step from not good to we're friends again.
And it just felt like very flat. Like I felt like I was just like told that they loved each other, and I never really felt it or saw it in the first one. Like kind of more in the third one I did, but like in the first one it just kept being like Dina's sad because she loves Sam.
And Dina and Sam were
yelling at her a lot for someone she loves.
And I was gonna say they're just kind of mean to each other.
Like that. But like also like I could kind of see that being realistic for like that first teenage relationship where you don't know how to interact with like your significant other yet. And like
for sure.
I think if the story had started before Sam moved to Sunnyside, even like a day before, like, it would have given us some really like needed context of their relationship because like we never got to see them like happy. Like the first time they interact, they're like yelling at each other
for like the level of stakes that the movie is based on. You need to like feel more invested. You know, like it would have been fine for something where like there wasn't so much hinging on their relationship. But like for the for how high the stakes were, the fact that all these people are dying for Sam, like I need to feel more invested in this relationship.
I would have died in the hallway if I was in the group. That would have been it. I'm like, sorry.
This does not pertain to me. This is not my business. I'm leaving.
I would not have died for her. Sorry.
No.
I don't even know her. Like we really were not introduced to her well. I don't know a thing about Sam. Dina a little bit more, but
I actually did. By the end of it, I really liked Kate and who was the guy?
What is his name?
Side guy?
What's the side
Ryan?
guy?
That sounds right.
Ryan.
Dina's brother, you mean?
No.
The other guy who died.
Two friends who died first.
Oh, yeah.
By the end, I actually really did like them. Josh, the brother, was the only one who I was like, I will burn my house to the ground if anything.
I love Josh so much. Like I was like, I will be very not okay if anything happens to him. He was like the one likable character from the start.
Yes.
His name is Simon.
Oh.
That's right. I remember that.
Kate and Simon. Yeah. I always felt like the whole like drug dealer thing, like it just felt like so like I don't even know how to describe it. Like it just felt like it was just like written in there because they needed them to have drugs at the end. And it never felt believable that these two kids were drug dealers.
That she's like babysitting.
Yeah, she's the kids like counting the pills.
And she's like, I don't care that the drugs I sold killed somebody. I'm like, what is going on?
You kind of seem like the kind of person who would care.
Yeah, so that like really the beginning of the movie when you like find out she deals drugs and she doesn't care about this person who died, like that was when the movie was really like rubbing me wrong, and I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this. This feels very insensitive.
Yeah. Actually, after the first one, I don't know if I would have watched part 2 if we weren't doing this. And then once I watched part 2, I was like, okay, I'll watch part 3. But yeah, the first one, I was like, I'm on the fence. Maybe if there's nothing else to watch.
Yeah.
I don't think I would watch the first one again, but I think I would watch 2 and 3 again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I haven't watched as many slasher stories as I have read slasher stories. And for me, for something to have staying, like, oh, I could watch this or read this again, it kind of has to balance the darkness with like moments of levity. And I just felt like the first one didn't do that as well. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's going to be really dark. It's a slasher. It's horror. There's murderers. But having elements of humor is kind of a staple of the genre, in my experience at least. And I felt like they could have used a little bit more of that. And they kind of got into the swing of it by the end. But really, the brother was the only source of
tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, tongue-in-cheek happy moments.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard a lot of people liken it to Scream. And I don't know if I quite agree with that. Like, I watch Scream every single Halloween because I love it. I think it's like such a good campy slasher movie. But I would not rewatch the first Fear Street. I don't know. I don't think it's like on the same level. Because obviously it's a slasher movie, so it's going to have gore. But like Fear Street, I felt like it was just like, it was too much, or it was like unnecessary. It's just,
I didn't personally have a problem. Well, obviously I didn't like love watching it or anything, but I felt like the color palette was so neon, so saturated that it almost always seemed obviously fake to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the concept that was like scary to me, I guess, was the fact that like someone that you love and care about and is like a super sweet person could just automatically suddenly become a psychopath, like serial killer. That was the scary concept. Like, but everything else was like typical like slasher film campy. But I did not like the idea of thinking that like my husband next to me could become like a serial killer because of the curse.
Yeah, it's pretty spooky. Oh, do we want to move on to number 2?
Yeah.
Number 2. Okay, I'm gonna pull up actually I am on IMDb, and there was kind of a cool little factoid about the first one, so where did it go? Oh yeah, so there's a little bit of trivia. It says, in the opening scene of the first one, the bookstore shelves are filled with Fear Street books with the author listed as Robert Lawrence. The letters RL in R.L. Stine's name stand for Robert Lawrence. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. There were a few, we'll talk about that later as well, but each episode had the books somewhere, which I thought was really cool.
That is very cool.
So let's go to the second one. Let's go through our ratings of the second one.
Second one was 5 stars for me. I loved it. It was my favorite of the 3. It was the most contained story. Sadie Sink is so talented. I love her. It was great. I just thought that it had that like isolation that was really scary. It had side characters that fell into similar roles as the side characters in the first one, but I felt like they were a little bit better developed. I just felt like the whole story was more cohesive. I thought it was great. I liked it.
And Des?
I would also give it 5 stars. I loved the second one. The second one is like a great movie that you could definitely just kind of watch the second one. I love like the scary like slasher at camp, like because there's tons of like stories that you tell around the campfire that are like that and like themed like that. And if you've ever been to camp, like camp is really fun, but it can also be a very scary place. And so like that idea was just really good. And of course, like you said, Sadie Sink is an amazing actress. I love her as Ziggy. It was so good.
Yeah.
So I mean, I will definitely be watching the second one again.
What about you, Emma?
Agreed. 5 stars. It is my favorite one of the 3. like Megan said, I liked that the story was like very contained in this one. Like it like stands the best on its own as a story. And I loved the summer camp theme or the summer camp setting. And one of my biggest issues that Megan kind of touched on with the first one was it like skipping around a lot of locations. Like they were like all over town and I felt like lost whether they were in Shadyside or Sunnyvale or like where they were. And so I liked having the story like in one location the entire time. That made it a lot better for me.
Yeah, we all feel the same way apparently.
Passing the brain cell around.
This is my favorite one. I'm a huge sucker for summer camp slasher movies. I will watch them whenever I can. If I see it on Netflix or whatever, I'm like, yeah. Because there's something about, like you guys said, like something a little freaky about like a sleepaway camp to begin with. Like I know when I went as a kid, it was like you're kind of the first time, sleeping somewhere else. Maybe it's the first time you're sleeping somewhere without your parents like nearby. It's usually surrounded by the forest, which can be kind of freaky that, it's not a lot as much kind of light all the time as you're used to. So yeah, it's kind of like, I think it's something to do with like having it be a really formative childhood, experience, that makes it really interesting and like another level of creepy, I think. Especially because you're like, it could be any of the cabin counselors. It could be any of your cabin mates. Like, the person above you in the bunk, are they the slasher? You don't know. So yeah, I really like this one. And I liked that it was set in the 70s as well, because there's something much smaller about that too, because there's not, cell phones around to call 911 or whatever. So yeah.
I really enjoyed that we got to be with Tommy for a really long time before he went bad.
Some character development,
so it was actually like I've seen the first one. I've seen him with the bag on his head. I know he's gonna go bad at some point, but like,
and I didn't like know that was Tommy or not.
I
didn't
put
really
two and two together.
I really liked it because it took. You got a ways into the movie before a slasher appeared. The whole time it was kind of like, which of these kids is going to be the slasher?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I watched them back to back all in one day. So
like
I remembered. Yeah, don't recommend it. But yeah, so I remembered them saying Tommy.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting that you'd have like, it makes sense you have a different sort of viewing experience if you watch them all back to back, because I watched them as they came out.
I watched 2 and 3 back to back.
Okay, interesting, because I definitely did not remember details like that. I had no clue going into it. I also thought they did a pretty good job like faking you out, thinking Ziggy was the other
one who died.
I caught it immediately. I was like, as soon as I saw Sadie sing, I was like, there's no way that she's the sister that dies. She's the main character. Like,
she's so cute. She's so talented.
I know.
It wasn't until that moment where they're like, "You're C. Bergman," that I was like, "Oh, we weren't supposed to realize."
I was like, it was really obvious. I was like, her name is gonna be like. When me and Jonah were watching it, I was like, her name was going to be like Christine or Sherry or something. And they just call her Ziggy because no mother named their child Ziggy, I don't think. Like, especially not in the 70s. Maybe now, but not in the 70s.
I didn't see it coming till like 10 minutes before. Because it was so much was happening.
Well, it was also to me like, once they killed her off, I was like, well, there's no way either of them can be resurrected. And then I was like, oh, I guess you can recover from 15 knife wounds with mouth to mouth. Okay.
Great news, guys.
Of course. Why didn't
CPR works on everything.
And they gave in all the lead up, not Britta, older Ziggy, because like the lighting is such that she has like brown hair in that lighting the whole time. So I was like, well, she does have brown hair. Would Ziggy dye her hair?
Yeah. I like when they revealed it, I was like, okay, this makes sense because of the coloring and stuff. But yeah, I was struggling with that too when I was watching it because I was like, the coloring is not the same. Like,
she like steps into the light at the end and is a redhead, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's definitely my favorite. I liked the like creepy cabin aspect. I wasn't, I think, a fan of like the mean girl aspect of it. I don't know. I I get the parallel between tying her essentially to a tree and burning her. Like, she's a witch, whatever. I totally get that. But yeah, I don't know. I think also part of me is like, this is tension and I don't like it. I'd literally rather be fighting a slasher than Mean Girls.
I really liked in this one, like, that you finally started to dig into what was really going on. Like, and that was part of the thing with like 1994 is that other than them like finding out about C. Bergman or whatever, there wasn't much because they were just like, we're running from killers the whole time. But I liked that this one, they were like, that the kids started figuring out what was going on with Sarah Fier. And I liked them like going down into the old house, discovering like all the stuff down in the tunnels was really creepy. So I enjoyed that a lot, of the suspense of them being stuck down there.
Yeah, I also felt like in the first one, they kind of tell you a lot, like Shady Side is the place where, you know, bad things happen. Sunnyvale is the place where good things happen. And you get a tiny taste that maybe they aren't great people either, just with like the football player being annoying. But you only get like 2.5 minutes of that, really. And so you just have this understanding of like good things happen in Sunnyvale, bad things happen in Shady Side.
I think you definitely get a taste later, though. Like when they're playing Capture the Flag and stuff, you're like, oh, the Sunnyvalers are freaking assholes.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about in the first movie.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, so I liked in the second one that it was like, oh, like obviously something is amiss here because the people are equally as bad as the Shady Siders, if not worse.
Even worse. They're worse. They're far worse. Any final thoughts? I have a couple of interesting little factoids about this one as well.
I did think that once again, like, is like, so there was Kate and Simon in the first one, which, like I said, they felt very like kind of unrealistic and like we're just writing them this way because we need them to be drug dealers or whatever. I kind of felt similarly about the two friends that are like doing drugs in this one. Like they felt very like caricature, stereotype, like they're just like making everything a joke. Like I don't know.
I loved them.
I did too. They were like some of my favorite side characters.
Time with them until
Alice,
I liked
her
later. Yeah, Alice. I liked her later.
I liked Alice, yeah.
But earlier they were driving me crazy.
They were very stereotypical, I think, and they're meant to be the dumb teens that get killed, essentially, like that. And they're like, they have sex and then they do drugs, so naturally they're going to immediately be murdered. Because I feel like they're very much fulfilling the typical slasher archetypes. And I actually liked that Alice specifically kind of transcended that a little bit because, you know, if you were fully embracing the, oh, she takes off her shirt, oh, she has sex, oh, she does drugs, she would be like cannon fodder immediately. But she actually lasts a lot longer than I expected and ends up kind of being a badass towards the end. So.
Yeah. And the pure virgin girl dies too. So like,
yeah, exactly.
You know?
They did transcend some of the stereotypes, but yeah, initially it was very much like the typical archetype slasher horror movie type people.
Go ahead.
I was going to read Ingriswald's question, but if you had something else to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I definitely bought, like, her, like, crassness. Because if you think about it, like, she was, like, best friends with, I can't remember the sister's name, but they were, like, best friends, you know, and, you know, they were doing not great things together. And so if you think about, like, hey, we used to be best friends and now you're too good for me, like, she's going to play that up even more because she knows it makes her uncomfortable. So, like,
true.
I totally buy that as, like, something that, like, ex-friends
she's
would
mad
totally
at her.
do.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So Ingriswald had a good question that reminds me of something I wanted to say about this one. But she said, did Tommy only kill Shady Siders? Did the girls Ziggy and Nick locked in the bathroom survive because she was knocked out a foot from where the counselor's head was chopped off?
Good question.
And the counselor who was in the shower wasn't murdered when the woman in the cabin with him was.
I don't think he killed any Sunnyvalers.
Because that was like kind of related to one of my questions once we find out what's going on in the third one, is I was like, okay, if you're this family who's like choosing these people to be the serial killers, why would you choose someone who's going to be at a camp with a bunch of your kids?
That's really true.
You know, like why would you do it in a place where they're all going to be there together?
I don't think he killed any of the Sunnyvalers because there was the part where the Shady Side kids were in the cabin in the like jail or whatever during Capture the Flag, and the second the Sunnyvaler left, came in and killed them.
That's really true though. Like that's a good point because like literally your own kid, like Nick Good, is there and being like traumatized because he likes Ziggy. If Ziggy had been like murdered in front of him, he'd probably be a bit upset. Like,
well, young Nick is the one who chose Tommy. Like it shows him in the third movie. He's actually and it makes sense because like he is still a dumb kid. So like a dumb kid who has the burden of this horrible family, would probably do something like that because he's like, well, I'm here anyway, so I might as well do it now so I don't have to come back.
And then be like, oops, he's trying to murder the girl I kind of like. Well,
I don't know if it's part of the curse. I didn't pick up on whether that's actually like part of the curse is that they can't kill Sunnyvalers, but I know it doesn't apply when all the monsters are descending on the one person who's touched the bones because they kill the football boyfriend in the first one when they're coming in to kill Sam.
Just like anyone in the way, basically.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Interesting.
Anyone who gets in the way. But if you don't get in the way, they'll leave you
So
alone.
was he in the way? Like, was he in front of her?
He was in between the monster and Sam.
Okay, gotcha. Because they make a big thing in the third one about being like he'll walk right past you. So they're consistent about that. With that, so here's another interesting piece of trivia. It's like although this is the second film in the Fear Street trilogy, it was actually filmed last after part 1. A little bit of trivia. So let's go on to part 3. The witchiest one of all. What did you guys think? Let's start with Des this time.
I liked it. I will give it a 4 because I liked it a little bit better than the first one. I definitely had like some serious issues with the story. But I liked it. I liked the setting. There's not a whole lot of like colonial setting stories, so I thought it was really interesting to experience like that setting in the story, so I like that.
Emma, what about you?
I think I'd give it 4 stars. I was like waffling between 4 and 4.5. I really liked the like going back in time and seeing all of that, and I thought that the twist in it was really cool and really interesting. But I did think that in order to make the twist work with the way they tried to, like trying to trick you into thinking one thing and then giving you a twist, like then they had to do a lot of explaining about why things worked the way they did. Like it felt like they had to work a little harder than they should have needed to make it all make sense. And also I do think that some of the actors didn't do a great job of playing people in the 1600s. But overall, like I found it enjoyable and I liked getting the answers and all of that.
And Megan.
4.5. I feel like the only thing that I felt was an extremely weak link was just Nick Good. And I don't know that it's necessarily all the fault of the third movie. Like, I think if they had just built up his character arc better throughout, then you would have needed less explaining in the backstory about why the Goods were doing this thing. You would have been less confused about like, well, but how did the boy who had a crush on Ziggy go from that to this? Like, where did this duality come from? Even if we'd gotten like 25 seconds of backstory of him with his father or something. Because I thought the whole idea of these men like killing these women and calling them witches while veiling it under like, just do what I say, I love you. I thought that was like really interesting and really compelling, but I just felt like the character development was lacking a little bit there. But overall, I thought it was really fun. It gave me like The Witch vibes. Yeah. Is that the one with like Anya Taylor-Joy in it? Is that the title of it?
Is that the one with a creepy goat in it?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because that one is also around that time
horrifying.
Period. Yeah.
I'm gonna say 4 out of 5 as well. Mainly because it was more tragic than fun. I really liked part 2 because it was fun in spite of being a slasher. And 3 I enjoyed as well. But yeah, it was just like, I probably wouldn't watch it again just because like, while I like stuff like that, it's historically accurate in parts to a point where I'm like, I don't like watching this and knowing that shit like this really happened. Because yeah, some of the parts like when I think it happens more than once when the girl basically rejects what's his nuts advances, and then he's like, well, let's say she's a witch, haha, revenge. That happened a lot. That was one of the reasons that some of the witch hunts actually like kicked off. Was I think the first woman who was ever accused of being a witch was because she had rejected the man she worked for. And then he decided that she was a witch because of it. So just seeing stuff like that, I'm like, I know it's realistic and they did a good job, but like, I wouldn't watch it again just for enjoyment, we'll say, because it makes me mad.
I would watch this one again. I think I really liked, especially once we went back to 1994. I thought there were so many clever moments in that part.
I really liked the super soakers.
Yes, so cool.
Very clever. Yeah, then they just attack each other. That was good.
You mentioned when we were talking in the post chat last week, Emma, the fact that you liked the romance in 1994 better having seen
16.
them.
Oh yeah, after watching 66.
Yeah. And I had that same experience, being like, oh well, this like I see like. Yeah. I didn't see them fall in love, but I believe that they're in love.
Watching them fall in love in 1666. It's like, oh, I care about these two actors, even though they're different characters. I at least could like project some of that chemistry onto their characters in 94. Yeah,
I definitely cared about them more than the previous version of them in the first one. Definitely, because you say, it's such a huge thing back then, like literally her being like, oh, we've brought the devil upon us because we have these feelings. It's like, oh shit, like another level of internalized homophobia. It's like clearly the devil has come because we smooched in a bush. Like wow.
I really enjoyed the set parallels because you end up in the tunnels and like every part. So I thought that was really fun looking for like, okay, where are we now?
Yeah. I also think one thing I just remembered that I had a thought of when I was watching like the end of this one, with the whole like Nick Good's character development not feeling like it was complete enough. Like I thought it would have maybe been interesting if like his brother, who's the mayor, was the one who was like in charge of the sacrifices. And if it was like Nick knows and he's complicit, I think that would have been more believable. If it was like he is in on it and he knows about it and is complicit and is benefiting from it, so he isn't doing anything about it, but he's not the one like actually doing it. I think that would have felt more believable for him, for his character in 78.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even in the third one with Nick's ancestor, technically it was the same vibe of like, I'm doing bad things, but I'm not a bad guy. You should be with me type of thing. And that was like a little more delved into, but not even enough for me. Like,
honestly,
more.
I felt like, obviously 1666 Good was a villain. Solomon, that was his name, right?
Yeah, Solomon.
Clearly a villain. I felt like they could have made him make a much more compelling argument for why she should stick around. Like
when he was like, what did he say? Team up or something. He's like, these people are hunting you. I was fully yelling at my screen, like, just toss your lot in with him and take down the freaking town. Like,
I was like, why not?
Roll, girl.
And I just felt like it didn't have to turn into this twisted, like, but I love you. Like, he obviously cared about her. It could have been like I'll protect you from them. You can be who you are. And they won't mess with you because you're with me and because I did this other thing that guarantees no one's going to mess with me. And that would have been like really compelling.
One of the biggest problems I had with this one was a huge disappointment because she says the line, if they want a witch, I'll give them a witch. And I got chills and I was like, holy, she's going to fuck it up. She's going to like, she's going to actually go back and get that book and pledge her soul and then she can burn it all down. And I was like so prepared for this. And I was like fully ready to embrace evil Sarah Fear because that's what she had been driven to. And then that just didn't happen. And I was just deeply disappointed. Sad.
I did really like the twist where the people who cared about her were the ones who had moved her body and carved in the rock, "The witch lives forever," where she was supposed to be buried. I thought that was a very fun twist.
Did you guys think that it was clear when like it was all said and done, like the thing about reuniting her hand and the thing about like if you touched her body, if you got her blood on you, all these things are happening for you? Like
that's where I was like, I think one of the weaknesses of the twist was that they had to explain so much. It already was very complicated to begin with. That it was like, okay, so the Sarah Fear curse. That turns out it isn't, but it's like there's a killer who comes however many years and kills everybody. But then there's also this thing where if you touch her bones, then all of the killers are after you. So there's like two different things going on, which made it really so complicated, confusing. Especially for them to have found somebody else who also had touched the bone. Like having to find somebody else that it happened to too was weird that they managed
and
to
the fact that like because I still don't get it. Maybe someone will be able to explain it to me because Fear Street didn't. But like if Sarah Fear is not a bad guy, how come
I can explain it. They explain it in there. Okay. So they had to like retroactively explain why all these murders were happening when it wasn't Sarah Fear's fault. So there's the killer however many years, and that's part of his deal with the devil.
Gotcha.
And then there's Sarah Fear. So her thing was basically anytime somebody touches her bones, they see what really happened.
The truth.
Yeah, they see the truth. But a lot of them, I guess, don't see enough of it to understand what happened. But so they see the truth. So the curse sends the killers after them so that they can't tell anybody the truth. Yeah, so like they have to really work hard to explain.
With the hand,
you're sending scary what's his faces after you. It's the curse, which that was clearly not clear.
And
at least.
This is, I think, something where watching them back to back helped because like all the breadcrumbs were pretty obviously there, like when you're going nonstop, because it was also the other people aren't seeing the whole history because she doesn't have all her bones, and so once the hand is there,
so reuniting
the whole thing.
Important.
I think they should have then made that more of a thing, whereas like her body should have been in more pieces then to get the rest of the pieces of the story. You know,
been interesting.
That would have been more realistic.
It would have needed like more.
Well, part of the hand thing was that like he took her hand, and she ran away. Theoretically, he would have taken more of her, but I don't think he understood the consequences of that when it happened.
Yeah, I just really wanted more vengeful witch shit, not just like it didn't happen. Sad.
Yeah. There was a comment from N. Griswold. I feel like a scene must have been cut explaining why he went to Ziggy's house to warn her it was starting again when he was behind it, and when he looked pleased to see her at the mall as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do definitely feel like there was like something was missing. That, like, why would he tell her it's starting again?
I think I had 3 questions that I had after the third one that I wrote down. The first one was, if you have unlimited power, why would you make yourself a cop?
For real though.
I was like, he's the sheriff? Okay.
Would dream big there, Nick Good.
My second one was, after all of this is done, they somehow just convince everybody that the sheriff was a serial killer. How? Because when they're down in the caves or whatever and they kill him, I was like, they just killed the sheriff. What's gonna happen? And then they're just they're like, I think you hear on the news Sheriff Nick Good was a serial killer or something, and I'm like, but how?
How though?
It's not like he had bodies under his house that they could have used. There was nothing for them to use to prove he was a serial killer. I'm very confused about how that works.
Yeah, all the evidence was like, it would have been like not like held up in court. Like, cause like the tunnels like were under his house and like
the names disappeared after they
the names disappeared. They had like the devil book, but like imagine trying to convince like people, yeah, he was a serial killer because his ancestor in 1666 sold his soul to the devil, and so now he kills people through this curse.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Real.
What
they don't have the book, right? That's
no,
the
they don't.
Credits.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Is someone grabs it out of there.
But yeah,
we don't know who.
Like, I don't understand.
Did the credits drive anyone else nuts? Because it was like credits. Picture for 50 seconds, credits, picture for 50 seconds. I was like, stop it. Just show me the picture.
And like, this is like, I guess, sort of the post credits that like there could be more and stuff. But I was also like, at the end, it was like, so the devil's just like cool with his deal being over. Like, they get rid of Nick Good and they're like, all good.
My hands are tied now.
The devil?
Maybe he's busy, okay, Emma? There's a lot of deals on his plate.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't feel like they did enough to really end the curse.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm sure there will be
I think
more.
that might be the point.
Yeah.
We're going to do more of these if it does well.
The director has said, I was looking some stuff up after I finished it, and the director said that she's really hoping they can do like an anthology of films kind of thing. That she wants a Fear Street cinematic universe.
I would love that. I would watch it.
She'll do like a TV series and movies and like all sorts of stuff with like different stories in this universe and like in Shady Side. And stuff.
I want to know about more of the killers. Like, we only really got to learn about like the Camp Nightwing killer, the Skull Mask killer, and like Ruby Lane, and they kept showing the little boy with the bat, and I want to know his story so bad. I want to see his story so bad.
I'm sure they will at some point. I'm sure.
Like they showed like 10 seconds of him like beating someone's head in, and I'm like, I want to see like the progression of this like 7-year-old like being a serial killer.
Yeah.
So we see Nick Good's house at the end. They come up into his house, and it's full of rams and goats, and like it seems a little on the nose. Like, if you ever convinced Ziggy to come over, surely she would immediately know.
Has he ever had any visitors over who've been like, the sheriff's kind of weird?
He's kind of got a lot of like devil symbolism in here.
It was like small town in the 80s and 90s during Satanic Panic. No one was like, the sheriff.
The sheriff is weird. Well, not to mention the fact that the house was like immaculate and beautifully decorated, except for all the weird dead animals. I was like, this is really strange. Like, it's like an interior decorator was just like, and let's add a few dead goats in every room. Finish.
Style.
Class up the place.
Can we talk for a second about the best line of the entire movie, of the entire trilogy, really, which is them rolling up in a stolen cop car with like a 14-year-old leaning out the window going, "You want to help us kill Sheriff Good?" And the guy just being like, "Yeah, sure.
Let me get my jacket." Yeah.
I did like the spray paint thing. The fact that like the sheriff was the one doing the spray painting. Fun twist, but like he did that. Why? Why?
He's just
bad guy.
And it would like make sense if the mayor was the one in charge and he was spreading the word about Sarah Fear. But like, wouldn't you not want people to dig too much into the curse?
Well, I think his brother, like, if I had to like speculate, I bet his brother was the one that took the book, because like even like in the news report they mentioned like the mayor of Sunnyside says he has no idea about what was going on. And it's like, like it would have been so much more interesting had the mayor been the one and you heard that little tidbit.
Yeah. Do they do anything to end the curse other than killing Nick Good?
No.
That doesn't make sense. There's other goods. So like the curse can't be, how does that end it?
I didn't even, by the end, I forgot he had a brother. I was like, oh, he must be the last one.
They don't talk about his brother literally until the very last that
Yeah,
scene.
they just
There's-
said the Good family.
There's some scenes in the first one where it shows Mayor Good like on TV.
Yeah.
Where I think he's
Okay.
I
hugging
do
him,
remember
and it
that
says
now.
nothing is good.
I'm
They-
sure he will be the bad guy next season or whatever.
Yeah, but it's
Well,
just like
they
weird
never
that it's
mention
over, but
him.
still Good's alive. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like at camp, because they make a big deal about how Nick's dad just died. And so how like they're kind of looking at him like what I guess looking at this 14-year-old like he's gonna be the next sheriff or whatever. But like I feel like it would have been a really great point to like make the point that he has a brother, but they don't. Like we never see him.
Yeah. It's like why you should just not give him a brother. Have him be like the last member of the family. Like it would have
I
been more.
assume it's just because they want more like villains from the Good family.
But it's just like
later.
if that's the case, if it's like, oh, well, they're still a good, so this is still going on, then the killers wouldn't have stopped coming after the girls.
They like Thanos
like,
snapped away.
Yeah,
So he must have like a separate role or
Yeah.
something.
I would think so. Otherwise, why give him a giant family? Like they made it seem like they're like there's a bunch of them or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no fun facts for this one, but I thought it was really cool how Dina opens her jacket in the end, and there's all the Fear Street books.
Yes.
It has body armor.
That was amazing.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I thought the idea of like spraying the bad guy with the blood so they would turn on him and then doing it again was just amazing. I thought that was clever. I was like, oh, wow, this is great. And then they conveniently ran out of blood because I understand it would be inconvenient to have the blood for the whole thing, but also like don't you think you should make extra?
I was like, yeah, why did they ration it? Like
Some water balloons full of it or something.
they had that like ambulance that they stashed. They should have just grabbed like one of those like blood draw kits.
Yeah.
Then you have all the blood you need.
Well, didn't it have to be certain blood? Didn't it have
It just had to be Dina's.
Yeah, it had to be Dina's, and that was it.
Yeah. I guess you couldn't give too much blood in one go.
I mean, why
all
not,
she did
though?
was like cut her hand and like pour a few drops in a bucket of water. So like if they could have like taken her blood, like even like a half a pint, they would have the whole thing would have been over in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Also, how did they explain Sam being possessed in the second and third one still? Why is she still being weird? Or why is she starting?
So at the end of it, after they save her, Nick is like, we got to get rid of her because she also like touched the bones and saw the stuff. And then now she like knows things. She's still around. So I'm going to put her name on the wall so that she becomes the killer.
I did not realize her name was on the wall.
I didn't either.
Yeah, he puts her name on the wall like in the climax of the first one, I think it is.
Shouldn't there be like a cool down period? Like I feel like you shouldn't be able to like spam
in
that
Among
power.
Us.
Yeah. There should be like a cooldown counter.
Yeah.
Like literally like skull face like just happened.
Yeah.
But I guess.
Yeah.
Sure.
What is it when you try to log into your email too many times and it's like
You're locked out of your account.
try again later?
Yeah.
The devil's like, sorry, I'm tired. I need a
Yeah.
You've entered too many names. The devil will serve you later. Like
Yeah. Wait, why didn't Sam disappear then? If she was a monster who had her name on the wall.
oh.
So yeah, I just don't understand. I'm confused.
Yeah,
There's
because
a
like
lot.
Because the other killers have died. So like
Yeah,
they
the
can
monsters
but
were all
not
dead.
Johnny or whatever his name is from Camp Nightwing. He didn't
Yeah.
die. Did he?
Mhm.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
Don't
the
listen to
killers
me.
always die.
Okay.
There's
Yeah,
a lot
remember
of
they like stabbed him a bunch of times.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I remember now. I completely forgot about the stabbing.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of questions that we're asking and like it wasn't wrapped up particularly well.
Yeah. I want more stories about the murderers. Like I want like a whole movie about the milkman murderer. That's so interesting to me.
Also,
Like-
I want to see some point in this town's history where there has been a member of the good family who was like, I'm not cool with this.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and like what happened, you know?
And was that the mayor? Like,
And It really seems like to me as well that the fact that like Shadyside or whatever, they're like very chill about their town's history as just like a slasher town. They're like, oh, it's another murder. I guess we're going to another funeral.
All the
It's
adults are like, this is, and all the kids are like,
is
well, we
fine.
have trauma, but okay.
Yeah, it's just odd that like as a small town, you're like called Murderville, and you wouldn't be like, maybe we should move.
Yeah, and they try to
I
kind
follow
of
that for the vibe, you know?
they try to do the very typical like cursed town type thing where they're like, no one ever can leave. But like, is that real? Like, has no one ever moved away? Sam moves away.
I was like, Sam moves away, like at the very first scene. Like,
but like Ziggy makes this whole deal of like, no one can ever leave Shadyside.
Escape, blah blah blah. Yeah. It's like,
I think it's more like I took it as like Shadysiders started becoming like their own self-fulfilling prophecies. Yeah. Like even if they weren't affected by like the good family, just because your entire life everyone tells you that you're garbage and you're never going to amount to anything and you're never going to leave and you're just going to end up, working at like a factory and becoming a drunk. Like that's what's going to happen because that's all everyone I've told you what to do for your whole life. Mm-hmm. So I think like that's kind of like
I just get like the mayor from Jaws vibe where he's just like, it's fine, everybody's being eaten, the tourists, it's fine, like like we're all just gonna pretend this is normal.
What happened to the girl who Sarah was in love with? I don't remember her name. Hannah?
Yeah.
What happened to her?
Yeah, we never find out what happened to her aside from surviving.
And burying Sarah.
I mean, she probably like went back and married some random man from town because it was 1666.
Yeah. And
I like to think that she became like a widow in the wood, like the last. Like, I would love to see that.
I thought maybe they were going to throw us for a loop and have it that she becomes Sarah Fear instead because she's so pissed.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, so I thought maybe she was be the one that was going to head into the woods and be like, I'm taking this book and I'm going to make a pact with the devil and I'm going to screw you all, like.
Yeah,
burn down the village.
I did like that they made it so Sarah wasn't the one who was causing all the murders because first off, like I just feel like that's a little bit of a tired trope, like, oh, this witch who cursed the town. But also like it didn't make sense for me all through the first one. This like whole like she was killed by the town, so now she murders everybody every few years. And if you touch her bones, she also murders you. I was like, why? Why is she
The bones thing didn't make sense to me at first either.
When she was killed as a teenage girl herself, like I don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just wanted to see the town burn because they were the worst.
I was also like, it makes no sense. Like, why would Sunnyvale like not be affected if like because wasn't the whole thing like Union like the settlement was both right? Like it was one town at the time, but like then it split like after this.
Yeah.
So like it made no sense.
It being her fault never really made a ton of sense. And I also I had seen I remember in like the trailer for like the entire trilogy, there was a really quick clip that I like remember seeing of Sarah and Hannah together. So I knew that like there was like sapphic content in the 1666 part. And I figured like once I started watching it that like it was Sarah. And so I was like, why would she be trying to kill these nice young lesbians?
Yeah, right, exactly.
What's the big idea, Sarah?
Shouldn't she be on their side?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I guess I just figured if like you're a murderous undead witch at one point, you just don't care anymore. But
overall, it was really fun. I liked it a lot, especially looking at it as a whole. I think as a whole story, it was a very strong story. There was only like a couple things that I would have wanted a bit more.
Yeah. If they make more stories, depending on like what they're about, I'd potentially watch them.
Oh yeah, I would definitely watch more.
Especially if they're about the murderers. I cannot reiterate that enough.
No.
If you are watching this, direct
ones that they just skipped over. I'm like, you told us about like the Nightman Killer was really interesting. I'll give them that. But like Ruby Lane was really boring. Like I would have much rather had little Billy coming in, taking out knees and then skulls. Like it would have been great.
So yeah, if you're watching this, Director of Fear Street, we are available for hire.
I'm sure they are. definitely a dedicated WordNerds fan for
Slide
sure.
into our DMs, please.
I've got plot ideas.
Many plot ideas.
Yeah.
I was gonna wrap it up with like a what's your favorite and least favorite, but I feel like we've gone over that. Like, it seems pretty obvious for all of us that it was the second one is our favorite and the first is our least favorite.
Yep.
Yeah. Seems to be a general consensus with like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff too. Like the reviewers seem to feel the same way. So, any final thoughts?
Watch it.
Yes,
So-
watch it.
Please like
And also like and subscribe.
follow us other places.
Yes. All right. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Oh, favorite murder. Sorry, that's kind of dark.
Ooh.
No, perfect wrap up. Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone have a favorite murder?
Ooh.
Safe to say it's not the bread slicer.
Mm.
A legitimate question. I don't know. I hated the giant beating heart. That's all. I hated that so much. Gag.
I liked Maya Hawke at the beginning. I thought that was a very fun slashery murder.
What was that?
The bookstore clerk.
Oh, okay.
The first murder.
Very classic slasher film.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was very classic. Yeah.
Probably the very last like murder scene in at Camp Nightwing was really good. As we all know, CPR saves you from stab wounds.
Well, write it down, guys.
Yeah. That will get a 10 out of 10 for most dramatic like death scene where the two girls are like almost touching hands and they're like bleeding out across from each other.
Beautifully shot.
It
Yeah.
was really sad because they were like, it was like they know that they're like literally dying, but they'll be together, and then they weren't because Nick had to save Ziggy.
Dang it, Nick.
Way to go, Nick. Yeah, so that was a good one. Nobody liked the bread machine one, and then that was the favorite was the two girls. So weird question, but it was a good one.
Shout out to Ed Griswold who recommended that this be our movie night discussion.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we did this.
Yeah, me too. I like it actually better than a lot of our book clubs. It feels like the last couple book clubs I've been like, I hated this book. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next Sunday. Do we have an idea what we're doing for next Sunday?
Yeah. Let me pull it up.
No idea.
I have a bunch of the chats are scheduled out from here on out. Next week is supposed to be our modern fantasy, breaking down the different kinds of modern fantasy with Rachel. There is a chance that we will switch it with Bad Writer Habits because Rachel is moving into a new house that week and she's the host. So if she messages us and it's like, I actually don't have time to host, then we will swap them.
I am all about Bad Writer Habits, so I have a lot of things to share that you shouldn't do. Okay, so thanks for everyone who tuned in. Thanks for Ed Griswold for suggesting that we do this chat. It was lots of fun, and we will see you next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.